Hi, my name is Viola, and I've been interviewing my dad about his 1997 Everest summit climb. He went on an expedition with Nova, and they actually filmed a documentary called Everest, the Death Zone. His team members included some pretty famous climbers like David Brashears, Ed Viesturs, Guy Cotter, and a few others. Even though this was quite a few years ago, 30 years ago, I'm a very curious person, and I wanted to ask him more about his climb and get to know all the information about it. So I started this series called My Dad Climbed Everest and I Have Questions. It's originally made for TikTok, hence the reason it's formatted the way it is on here. But I wanted to make some compilations of those videos on here so anyone who wants to can access those. So in today's video, we're mostly talking about the Khumbu Icefall and his experiences in the icefall. Kind of everything about it, the Icefall doctors, who they are, what they do, and then some of his scarier moments while climbing through. And then lastly, we're also talking about how Everest actually grows every year, and he explains why and how that happened. So enjoy.
A big chunk of ice and snow let loose from the west ridge of Everest. So the Khumbu Icefall is basically right above Everest Base Camp, and it's low on the mountain, so you have to go through it multiple times. It moves about 3 to 5 feet a day because base camp's at 17,300 feet. The top of the icefall is around 9,200 feet, and the ice is moving from the western Khum down, and then it kind of calves off and goes into this like waterfall, I call it, but it's a slow moving waterfall. And you never want to be in the icefall when anything moves because it's usually pretty significant icefall and avalanches. It's pretty scary. But when you're in there, you want to move as fast as you can. I'm not talking dangerous fast, but I'm talking efficient fast. And you want to make sure you have your crampons on, your ice sacks, you're tied in, or there's a fixed rope there that you're clipped into. But you want to make sure you're moving at a decent pace and not stopping and starting. You go over the ladders and things. Sometimes you'll hear creaking and cracking. It's pretty intimidating. And we climb through the icefall in the night hours and early morning when it's really cold out. Because when it's cold out, that ice is kind of it's like concrete. It's hard. It's just glued together. But when it starts to warm up, the ice starts to kind of loosen up, and that's when things really happen in the icefall. That's when things move, and you want to be out of there when that sun hits it. So it's intimidating. I vividly remember in 1997. It's probably around May 18th or so, 18th or 19th. We were moving up the mountain, left base camp, and we were a quarter of the way up through the icefall before it got into kind of right before the football field, which is a kind of flat area, and a big chunk of ice and snow let loose from the west ridge of Everest. And it was a pretty big plume. And we just kind of sat there and looked at it because there was nothing we could do, and the thing kind of exploded, and just the snow came through with a pretty significant wind, and it was intimidating because you didn't know what was going to happen, but it just kind of it lacked the power to really get to us and do any damage. But that was the pucker factor going through the icefall for me. It's got to be one of the most dangerous jobs in the world. The Icefall doctors are a group of Sherpas. There's like 10 to 12 of these guys, and they get paid at the beginning of the season to re-establish the climbing route through the Icefall, and they also have to go up there every day once the route is established and make adjustments because the thing is moving all the time. And so they're going to make adjustments with the ladders, make sure the anchors are safe and they haven't melted out. It's a very dangerous job. These guys are really good at it, but they're in the icefall for 4 to 6 hours a day, and the more out, as you're in there more hours, the chances of a disaster happening rapidly increased. So it's got to be one of the most dangerous jobs in the world. These guys get paid for doing that, and they get gear and things like that now. And it's a hard job, but it seems like they always get people to do it. I'm not really sure how they get selected, but I think it's through the Khumbu Climbing Center now that these guys get selected. I'm not sure who does the selecting. I do know that all the expeditions put money into a fund every year to pay for these guys and pay for the gear, pay for the rope and the ladders to get it, make sure it's done properly. And a lot of the guides will put input into the route. They'll input like if they feel like the route is going too far to the left towards the west, West Ridge, or too far to the right towards Noopsy, they'll say something. There was some ladders, I remember, that were kind of sketchy. I do remember coming down after we summited in '97, and we were moving slow because I was moving slow because I was exhausted. But I remember how soft the snow was going through the ice fall, and probably May 25th on that day. And it was warm, and I was scared, and I was moving slow because I didn't have the energy. But I also remember how much the ice fall had changed from when we came up like a week before, and it was crazy. And the icefall doctors did a great job in maintaining the route back then in '97, and the fixed lines were in place, but there was some ladders, I remember, that were kind of sketchy, but we just kept moving. I kept moving and got back down to base camp, and when I got into base camp, I was so relieved. The emotion of that was significant, just knowing that I had survived the icefall for the last time. And the cool thing is I know I'll never have to go into it again. Everest grows every year. It grows about 1/16 of an inch, or centimeter a year, and it's caused by plate tectonics. The Indian plate is pushing against the Himalayas, and so it pushes the Himalayas up a little bit every year, and that's why it's a big earthquake zone. And there's a lot of earthquakes in that area too. So it's always growing. It's also eroding a little bit. I don't know what the erosion rate is, but in a net, it's like 1 centimeter a year that Everest grows, which is pretty significant. And if I remember right, somebody told me after the 2015 earthquake, Everest dropped like 1 inch or 2 inches. I can't remember that number. It might be more than that, but it kind of dropped down a little bit too after the quake. So I have to do some research and take a look at how much it did drop. So it's always growing, it's moving. Everything on Earth is kind of either eroding or growing, or it's always moving. Everything is in flux. That's how life is, and it's called impermanence.